Our Correctional Services Commissioner Makgothi Thobakgale and Justice Minister Ronald Lamola will this morning announce whether former President Jacob Zuma will go back to prison. In a statement just before midnight, the department says the decision will be announced at 7:30. Of course, we will carry it live here on the AM report.
Yeah, that move comes after the Constitutional Court last month dismissed an application to challenge a Supreme Court of Appeal ruling which found his release on medical parole unlawful. That's after he was sentenced to 15 months in jail for defying a constitutional court order to appear at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. In fact, the 81-year-old was released, however, only 2 months into his sentence. His initial arrest was linked to the 2021 July riots, which sparked widespread protests that left over 300 people dead. All right, let's try make sense of all of this for you now. Bring in our reporters who are watching different legs of the story. Junior Kumalo is live to us from the capital. But first, we start with Karinda Jagmohan, who's in Durban for us. And I imagine part of the concern where you're at, Karinda, is what the consequence will be if indeed the former president is sent back to jail today.
Certainly, all eyes on this announcement, specifically KwaZulu-Natal residents watching closely, because 2 years ago when the former president was incarcerated, this area, Durban, parts of KZN, came under siege. The city behind me, you'd have seen smoke billowing from the ground as various shops had been looted and then set alight, but mostly small businesses, because those were the ones that were open to the public at that time, or more accessible, really. The areas of Queen Nandi Drive, where it's an industrial area, was also came under siege at that point, in various parts of Durban as well, where shops were looted, and then we saw as well bloodshed across the city, across the province, really, too. Like you said, more than 300 people died. This in the aftermath of Zuma's incarceration 2 years ago. At that time, we saw first the burning of trucks at the Mooi River Toll Plaza, and then we saw sporadic protests across the city that slowly throughout the night, and then on Monday morning, that was just about 2 days after Zuma was incarcerated, we saw really the looting starting at some of the major malls in the city, and then really going into the small businesses across this area. So there is that concern really that this could be the aftermath once again if Zuma were to be incarcerated. At this point, I've not seen any security on the ground in terms of either Metro Police or SANDF. We will be taking a drive around, specifically at the toll plazas, just to see what the security points are like, if any. And again, at this point, the concern is there because of the trauma that came 2 years ago in the aftermath of Zuma's incarceration. Now, over the past month, since the court announced that Zuma would be incarcerated, we spoke to various residents about their concerns, and here are the voices of 2 residents who essentially are pleading for calm in the midst of this imminent announcement.
Ngoba even manje izinto eziningi ayikarecover, even nathi esidayisayo sakhona ukushayeka khona kusanzinyana impela should sengaba west ukuthathe another maybe 10 years to come ukuthi si recover sibe right.
Guys out there, you know what, we were suffering in the beginning, you know. We just kind of trying to get back on our footing, and we don't want to see another thing what happened 2 years ago, you know. There's still people suffering out there. The shops are still closed in the Isipingo CBD. We're still trying to find our feet, so we can't afford to go into another unrest.
All right, of course, we're watching the story from various vantage points. Karinda is live to us from Durban. Stand by, Karinda, because Junior Kumalo is also on this, watching the imminent announcement from Pretoria for us this morning. And 15 minutes and counting, Junior. That's when we expect this announcement to finally be made. A lot is hinging on what the commissioner has to say. Does it look like we'll start on time?
Good morning, Ayanda. Yes, we are outside the GCIS building, which is just behind me, where the press briefing is expected to start on time. We were inside the building just 10 minutes ago. We saw the Correctional Services spokesperson, Crispin Piri, who confirmed that definitely everything is on track to start on time. And the Correctional Services Commissioner, Makgothi Thobakgale, is expected to deliver that announcement, and former President Jacob Zuma will finally know whether he is going to return to prison today. it's going to be an unpopular decision either way it goes. If it does happen that he goes back to prison, as my colleague Karinda has expressed, that we saw a lot of unrest that happened that followed that imprisonment in 2021. But also, if he does not go back to prison, we know that opposition parties will take the matter up in court to challenge this decision, because we saw the High Court last month declaring that there's no prospect for this rule, there's no prospect for the National Commissioner to succeed when it comes to this decision, and it upheld a decision that was taken by the Supreme Court of Appeal last year when it found that the decision to release former President Jacob Zuma was unlawful. We know that the former president had been sentenced to 15 months in jail, and he only spent 2 months and was released on medical parole. So we're expecting the briefing to start on time, Ayanda.
Right, Junior Commando left us there from the capital. Karinda Jagmohan is in Durban for us. If you haven't noticed, we're watching the story very closely. To both our reporters, thanks very much indeed. All right, and that rounds up the big stories that we're watching for you. Once again, 7:30 is the time given for the Correctional Services Department to make that all-important announcement. And I think Junior put it quite well. No matter how it goes, there are going to be a fair amount of people aggrieved by the decision itself. The question, of course, is whether or not the principle of that decision will essentially stand the test of time.